mastering time management as a candidate skill rather than as a teacher skill. So we're not talking about time management during the lessons, but we are talking about how candidates on intensive teacher training courses, whether they are full-time or part-time, I still believe that they are pretty intensive, can handle the coursework. Now, before we start, there are 4 things that I wanted to talk about. One is my rationale for the session. This year, I was in the very happy position of having to do a lot of part-time Delta Module 2 courses. And I noticed that although all of the candidates who joined the Delta Module 2 part-time course did so because of time constraints, they soon realized that it's actually a lot more intensive and demanding than a full-time course because they had to balance the coursework with their own teaching work. So, in the feedback that I received for one of these courses, a candidate said this: time management is a problem because of stress, and that's why there's no strategy that helps. And I took that as a challenge. However, I do have to warn you that this is an experimental session. I don't have all of the answers. I have some of the answers, but this is something that I want to continue working on and continue investigating to make sure that our candidates get the most and the best of their time on the course. And that time management and time constraints aren't such a source of stress. About 15 minutes or so, my phone will go off. Don't panic. I'm going to stop whatever it is that I'm doing then, and I'm going to ask you this question. You don't have to share it with anyone, just have a think. What's occupying your attentional space at that particular moment? What are you thinking about? Oh my God, Julie's got something on her dress. Or are you thinking about what you're going to do next? Or are you completely focused on what's happening, okay? And finally, is anyone here using pen and paper? Okay, good. Now, if you are using pen and paper, I would like to invite you to use this particular layout. So you can take your notes here. The distractions are what we're going to talk about at specific moments in our session, and then at the end, we'll have a look. So at the very bottom, you can have that. You'll see that the magic number 3 will make an appearance throughout our session today. My session will be divided into 3. First, I asked the question, why is time management important? And tutors and candidates answered. So we're going to revise the survey responses. Thank you very much for those of you who have completed that. Then, we're going to be looking at what support we can give the candidates on teacher training courses, particularly on CELTA and DELTA Module 2, before and during the course. And the final reflections are going to be your personal intentions moving forward in relation to this particular topic. Okay? Some statistics. Let's start with some boring numbers. 57 of the respondents for the candidate survey have more than 10 years of experience. 44.4% were enrolled on a CELTA course, then 33 on M2, and then 11 on M3. These are the culprits for time management issues. Obviously, they're not very unsurprisingly, 51% were on full-time courses, 22% were on online part-time courses, and online full-time courses, 14%. So what these numbers tell me is that CELTA, Module 2, even Module 3, these are the regular culprits when it comes to time constraints and candidates having issues with managing their time. And also the fact that we had full-time, online, part-time, this again corresponds with my experience, and it showcases that, okay, I was right to kind of focus on these particular courses. And as you can see, like if we add up these online courses, again pose problems when it comes to time management. Now, very surprisingly, 51% rated time management skills as good. Remember, this is a very subjective evaluation. 25 as average, and about 14 as excellent. Then, when asked if they use a daily or a weekly schedule. 40% said often. We had 37 said always. And 14 sometimes. Okay. Now, what does this tell you? Yes, well, I'll tell you what this told me. So, some insights. Calendars and to-do lists are the most popular tools among candidates. However, I believe that their effectiveness is recognized, but not fully exploited. And I believe that it's this bit, the 25% average is the people, you know what they were saying, they looked at the survey and they said, well, I don't know what to put, I'll just put in average. So I think that that is something that we need to be mindful of. And surprisingly, when I was reading the literature about productivity and time management, it was again something that was stated that a lot of people use calendars, use to-do lists, but they get overwhelmed with them quite fast. Calendars and to-do lists, this was their rated effectiveness. So the candidates were asked, do you use them? Do you find them effective? So 51 said effective, 22 said neutral, and 25 said very effective. But again, it's this bit, the yellow bit, they're neutral about it. Well, I do probably use them, but I don't know how. Very interestingly, when they were asked how they prioritize tasks, 74 said it depends on deadlines, and 66 said depends on importance. Again, that tells us something. I'm going to come back to these later on. And the top 3 issues for time management were, unsurprisingly, coursework with teaching duties, particularly on part-time courses, stress or anxiety. This one was quite surprising for me. 55%. An overwhelming workload, 51%. I asked the candidates, what do you expect? And this is what they said. First of all, very interesting. I asked them first, do you feel the course that they were enrolled on provides support? And they said yes. They said no. And they were unsure. So again, this half is telling of how they perceive time management on the course. And when asked what else we can do, before the course, these were their answers. And this was an answer that, surprisingly, both tutors and candidates said. So, pre-course information about time management. More emphasis on timetable and deadlines of assignments beforehand. So when the course starts, they know exactly what they need to do. And not just giving them, they're not saying giving them the timetable, but they say putting more emphasis, because on the courses that I run, they get the timetable well in advance. And some pre-interview tasks that could give an idea about candidate skills with time management can be included. This wasn't a tutor that said this was a candidate that said this. So, okay. It's time. 30 seconds by yourselves. If you're using the layout, the distractions column, what is occupying your attentional space right now? What's going through your mind right now? You don't have to tell anyone. Okay, thank you very much. We'll revisit that at the end. So, what does that tell us? That perhaps we might want to adapt the pre-course task, or whatever pre-course task we give to the candidate, so that it's perhaps less focus on content and more on coping strategies and study skills. And I'd like to make the point that when students go to university, there's a lot of emphasis on study skills, and there's a lot of literature on university study skills. Why not for CELTA? Or DELTA, for that matter. Another possible solution for the course, this was suggested by a candidate, is sending the timetable and TP points in advance. And this is something that I routinely do on CELTA courses with very good results. And the comment was, knowing what kind of lesson we'll be teaching next ahead of time to give them more preparation. But these are my 2 suggestions for before the course. Let's have a look now at what could we do during the course. This is what the candidates say. Regular reminders of where candidates should be with lesson planning and assignments to avoid leaving everything to the last minute. And this, if you are unfamiliar with Slack, this is a messaging platform that, for example, I and my colleagues use on CELTA courses and DELTA courses. You may use WhatsApp or Telegram or what else. What we started doing is every Friday we have a list of things that people should work over the weekend, but it is prioritized in terms of importance. So this is what you should occupy most of your time, and we've got great responses from that as well. A lot of requests for an initial time management session with a tutor or experienced trainee, someone who's gone through the course, which would help to predict the workload, set and prioritize personal goals for the course. So I designed the Delta Study Skills session, which I'm happy to share with you, and I will share with you at the end. But I did want to focus on one aspect of this is the end part of my Delta Study Skills session. So, this is what I do. I give my candidates the timetable on day 1, and I ask them to do the following. We are focusing on organizing their work. They have to look at the timetable and find out when you have to submit your coursework. That means the date, the time, and the place, the folder they have to put it in. And the second question is, once they've done that, is work out how much time you have to prepare for your submissions. Yeah, so not just when, but, and I always encourage them to fix, particularly on part-time courses, to fix a non-negotiable date slot. 2 hours on one day where, barring an emergency, they only focus on their Delta work. This is what the timetable, table that they have to fill in looks like. So they have their submissions, the diagnostics, stage 2, LSAs, when you have to submit it, what's the time, what's the place, and then they look at that, they look at their own calendars, and they make a decision on how much time they have before each submission. Again, over to you. Could you adapt this for a CELTA course, and how? Okay, so have a chat with each other. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Like I was saying, that my context is generally part-time online.
Yeah.
So you get the candidates that look at the deadlines. They're like, no, it's weeks away. Fine, but they're not thinking about, I've got to plan this. I need to do my research. I need to write the draft, and I've got to rewrite it. So I think something like this would really help them. And then, like, rather than looking at the end deadline, looking at the deadline where you've got to start the plan.
Also, I don't know if this has been your experience, but we spend so much time on the timetable, making it include everything that we want, and the candidates don't know how to interpret the timetable. Yeah. And doing this has helped them kind of understand what my rationale behind even the layout of the timetable was, so they know where they're looking at things. Yeah. Yeah, so this, this is something that I've already done. I've done this on Delta Module 2 part-time courses and face-to-face courses with noticeable increases in awareness mode, first and foremost. Productivity, there are a lot of other variables here, but at least awareness, it was a lot better. So we have the Delta Study Skills session, but I also want to include a time management session. I've started working on it. And today I'm going to pilot the first part of it, and you're going to be my guinea pigs. It's quiz time. If you have pen and paper, have it ready, or work with someone who does. You can scan this QR code, please. The idea is to choose one answer, and then count how many A's, how many B's, and how many C's you have. Please count how many A's, how many B's, and how many C's you have. And here are the answers. So what's the best time management technique for you? If it's mostly A's, the Pomodoro technique. Mostly B's, timeboxing, and mostly C's, daily intentions. Just out of curiosities, which ones did you get?
A's.
Oh, excellent, because I've got a video about that. intention. So let's talk about, for those of you who had B's, time boxing. I've been practicing time boxing for the past 2 months, like actively, and it's not just putting things in your calendar. It is putting things in your calendar, but it's putting things with intention and breaking things down. So when I was planning parts of this session, one of the things was like, read the last 2 chapters of time boxing, and something very important is review the notes from the book, because we tend to read, we tend to underline, but we never actually go back to what the notes that we took. Then lunchtime, a lot of hardcore time boxers schedule every single, oh, here we go.
I do that.
Yeah. 30 seconds, what's occupying your attentional space? What's occupying your attentional space? So what is time boxing? It's a couple of things, not just using a calendar, but it's using the calendar in an intentional way. It's also a method and a mindset of selecting, that's very important, selecting what to do before the day's distractions arise, specifying each task in a calendar, including when it will start and finish, and committing to that. Focusing on one thing at a time rather than multitasking. So in this bit over here, I'm only reading. I don't have my phone next to me, or if it is, it's on flight mode. And very importantly, doing each to an acceptable rather than perfect standard. Be okay with okay. So I've been slaving over the Pomodoro video, and at one point I had to say, it is what it is, and I'm just going to put it out there, and that's it. One of the key here is, I think, the word selecting, because we tend to cram things in a day. We just like, I have an empty slot here, I'll do this. But we also have to be mindful of several things. One of them being our productivity. Are we more productive in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening? So for example, I'm more productive in the evening. So that's why I feel like in evening and afternoon, so anything that I have to actually produce, I put it in the afternoon. Anything that I have to reflect on, I put it in the morning. And also, I find that for me, it's when I started time boxing, I have to select what I can reasonably do in a particular day with the other commitments that I have. So if I have a part-time course, perhaps working on this isn't going to, working on this, the editing part, isn't going to be very productive. I need to do something a bit more light, so maybe a reading or a revising session. Yeah, that's why I don't, as I said, I'm not a hardcore time boxer. I think if I have too many time boxes, it tends to be overwhelming. The idea is to prioritize. And if we go back to what the candidates were saying, like helping them choose and select what to dedicate their focus to is helpful. And remember, I was saying that at the beginning, with calendars and to-do lists, maybe candidates don't know how to use them. The time boxing strategy may be a way that we can help them with using the calendars and to-do lists that they already use. Yeah. Finally, intentionality, as I said, the rule of 3. At the start of each day, choose 3 things that you want to have accomplished by the day's end. To an acceptable standard. Be okay with okay. To an acceptable standard. While a to-do list is useful for the nitty-gritty of every day, these 3 intentions should be reserved for your most important daily tasks. And this is where I find you can be flexible with time boxing, because if you have, like Stephanie was saying, a lot of tasks and you feel overwhelmed, then doing this I do it the day before. I find that it's a little bit easier to say, okay, tomorrow I have 1,000 things to do, but I'm going to focus on the 3 most important things. Somehow, I end up doing them. This is from a very nice book by Chris Bailey, Hyper-Focus. And if you remember what they said, that candidates tend to prioritize tasks depending on deadlines. And importance only 66%, when we know that it should be the other way around. They should prioritize tasks based on importance. And something like this, the rule of 3, the 3 intentions for the day, may help them with prioritizing in terms of importance. And the reminders that we send them, that I send them, for example, on CELTA, on full-time courses before the weekend, focused on prioritizing. And I tend to put it like 3 things. The most important thing, you need to get this out of the way, do this. Then number 2 and number 3.
Can I ask
Yes, go
something?
ahead.
Remember you asked them to prioritize
Yeah.
and when to do what,
Yeah.
the table at
Yeah.
the beginning. But do they know how much time they're going to have to spend on, for example, assignment 1?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's say, how about lesson plan and this and that? They don't know that, so maybe I was thinking it would be a good idea for us when we're putting assignment specifications,
Yeah.
put the number of hours you would most probably
Yes.
have to
Yes.
That's
That's a very good point, and thank you very much for sharing, because I do the table that I use it on the Delta, where they already know how much time it takes. But on the CELTA,
But at the beginning they don't.
They need to be
After a lesson one they do.
They do. Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's my last question for you. Is what are your 3 intentions for the next course in terms of time management and how you can make your candidates aware of that? 2 minutes, last 2 minutes with your partner, please. I'm going to share 3 intentions with you. My intentions, thank you very much, Elif, for that wonderful idea, and I'll tell you why that's important in a moment. Also, distractions. Remember I asked you? Apparently there's some research that being aware of distractions and when our mind wanders helps us bring it back. So it's useful to kind of build that awareness in of what am I thinking now, and consciously try to bring back on task. So that might be my intention for you, to become more aware of distractions. Finally, this is 2 books. My other intention for you is, if you're interested in time management, there's a lot of literature. These are the ones that I recommend. Particularly timeboxing is useful because every chapter, it tells you how long it's going to take you to read it. Yes, and I think it inspired me. So when I'm designing my time management lesson, I'll think about that, of how much time would it take to lesson plan to write a background essay. Excellent. And here you have the time management resource pack. You have access to my full Delta study skills session, the Pomodoro session, and the quiz if you want to use it. And the time management quiz if you want to use it. And I finished right on time.
Yes! Yes!
2 minutes early because I started 2 minutes late. All right, so the last 2 minutes, thank you for your time. And if you want, I'm everywhere, so thank you very much.
Like and subscribe.